Hello, my name is Dorothy Rosen. I'm a goldsmith in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I welcome you to my studio today to talk about. I'm going to talk about the unsung heroes of the studio, if you will. That's what I call it, which are the kinds of tools that you don't normally see so much because there are some tools that you'd see quite often on my Instagram posts and what have you, like the stone setting tools and the torches and those kinds of tools. But I thought I'd show you some other ones. And as I was laying them out here, I was noticing that there are quite a few of them. So I'm gonna have to go a little bit faster than I originally thought. So I don't even know really where to start, but this is one I'm going to start because I've had it for a long time. This is a teeny tiny anvil. Well, it's actually not teeny tiny. I even have a smaller one. This is an anvil and it is used for forging. So I have done blacksmithing, and in that case you use a much larger anvil. This guy's pretty small, and get this, my dad gave it to me when I was like 10 years old. My dad gave me this. Did he ever have foresight? And he would be pretty excited to know that I still use it today, which is like, 40 years later. So that's an anvil, and of course I use an anvil. Where am I going to put these things? I use an anvil with a hammer, and there are too many hammers to really get into. But I don't even have a forging hammer here, but this is a stone setting hammer. Very flat on this side. You've seen, I've used it quite a bit. This is what you hit the stone setting tool with, which I'm going to get into later. This is a riveting hammer. This is a rawhide mallet. I use rawhide mallets quite a bit. I love them, and I have one that's weighted. It has actually lead inside of here, and it's a beautiful one. This is a lighter one, but lots of different hammers for different reasons. And again, I'll bring that up again later. Well, speaking of stone setting, I make some of my own tools. These ones are just made from nails, literally, and these are very simple stone setting tools. And the idea here is that, I put this, when I have a bezel, I put, hey Benedict, it's nice to see you here. I want to bring you on sometime, Benedict. She is my stone merchant in Montreal, and I'm dying to bring me on for one of these. I will definitely do it. But right now I'm talking about the homemade tools, self-made, studio-made tools. So you see it's kind of made narrow here and made flat on one side, so I know when I hold it which side is the flat side. And this is held at the edge of the bezel, and then the special stone setting hammer would be the one that hits it. So the force goes here and pushes the bezel over the edge. Better the bezel than me. This is a particularly nicely forged one. That's also a stone setting tool, same idea. But it has this lovely little curve in it. You can get a little fancy when you make your own tools. And then some very basic ones that you hardly ever see. Files. I use lots of files. I do lots of filing, and they come in different grits, if you will. Like this is a 4. That's a fairly fine file. And then for doing waxes, they're super coarse. This is a wax file. It's very, very coarse. And all kinds of things in between. These are smaller. They're called needle files, and they also come in different coarse or finer. And sometimes when a file, so you can clean a file with this tool. You'll never see, this has a little fluff in it. This is a file comb, and it cleans the grooves. You can clean it. But at some point a file becomes really unusable, and then you can make it into another tool. This is a tool that's made very sharp, where the file has been made very sharp in the front, pointy, and then bent over first rather. And I've made a handle for it out of this is a kind of material that it's soft when it's hot and then hardens, and so it's like made exactly for my grip. And this is a scoring tool, so when I make square bezels or I make a box, there needs to be a very, exactly this angle score through the edge that I'm going to then fold It's complicated. But anyways, trust me, files have an afterlife, and this is the afterlife. And yeah, files make me think about sandpaper. I do so much sanding. So much sanding. Sanding is probably the thing I do, I almost want to say the most, other than forging maybe, with those 1-footer rings. But each length of 1-footer, to shape the initial wire is forged, and then it has marks in it, so then it needs to be cleaned up, and that cleaning happens with sandpaper. These are sandpaper sticks. They're actually painting sticks. They're marked with their grit. So 800 and 1200 here. So these grits get very fine, and I actually need new ones. This is a little battered, and I use what's that called? Double-sided tape on these paint sticks. The paint sticks are perfect, and then I can use the pressure of my hand, you know, to sand. And so sanding sticks I use a lot, but not always do I do it by hand. There are electric tools, and this is one of my other main tools that I use. This is referred to as a flex shaft, and it is called that because it has a flexible shaft on it. At the end of it is a handpiece, and this handpiece is exchangeable. In this case, I have here 1200 grit sandpaper, and this is not plugged in because my bench is actually over there, and I don't have a plug here for this. But so this turns really fast, has a foot pedal, just like a foot pedal, kicking the stand here. But the foot pedal is like the one on a sewing machine, so you can adjust the speed with which this thing turns. It's important to protect your eyes when you use this, and whenever you use sandpaper, you want to definitely use an N95 mask, because sandpaper contains silica, and silica will cause silicosis of the lungs, and that'll kill you. There's no way around that. So that's the flex shaft tool, which I use so much, and I never usually show it. And in fact, it's usually right by my bench, and whenever I do a live, I take it down because people wouldn't know what it is. So you would now know what that is if you saw it in the background. Today I'm somewhere else, actually, because I want to show you a couple of things behind me. So let's see, what other things do I use? I use lots of saws. This is one of my favorite ones. Isn't that pretty? Such a beautiful shape. They're not all that pretty. I use saws, and the saw blades are all different. And I use, this is a cool tool. This is called a ring clamp, and it's held many a ring and settings. If you have very tiny things to hold, you put them in here, and then you put a wedge at the bottom, which I could not locate just now. I gotta find that. And that then causes this thing to be held really well. And then you can work with it with, for example, the flex shaft tool. This is another much underappreciated tool that I was introduced to probably my first semester studying jewelry design, and I still use it all the time. And after sanding, generally the next step is polishing, and my polishing machine's over there. I'm gonna put a post up in the next few days with at the polishing machine, so you see. But they have these felt buffs that are about this wide. These ones are already quite used, and I use different ones. One is silver, and one is gold, and then they have polishing compound like this, and this gets super dirty. Like the black on here the whole piece will be black after polishing. It's just the weirdest thing, that something that creates a high polish creates so much dirt. And then my hands are always really black after that. You may have seen that on something. And then so this is part of what I wanted to show you. So then after polishing, or sometimes when people come see me in the studio when it's not COVID times, when they come in, I oftentimes clean people's jewelry just while they're waiting or while we're talking in this very powerful ultrasonic cleaner, which will get rid of any dirt in between. This is actually used, same tool is used in dentistry, for example. Um, oh, that's too bad. You can't see the live. Oh, that's too bad. Oh yeah, in Tehran. Oh, that's so cool. Esme man Dorothee asked. That's I think my name is Dorothee in Farsi. Um, so this thing is awesome. It's heated, and then it's got this very fast ultrasonic these waves going through it, and you have the cool little blue light to know it's really working. But this is indispensable. So I use that a lot, and then exchange the water. And another thing I sometimes use in terms of the wheel, the polishing wheel, is this crazy thing. These are individual tiny little steel spikes that I put on my polishing wheel instead of the polishing wheel on the spindle, And what it will do is it will make this kind of finish, this brushed finish, because the individual pieces of steel will hit the gold and basically mar it, but so many of them that it looks like this matte finish, which is very beautiful, and I'm very fond of. And then some other tools. These are called bent ring shanks, and what they are is they have, one of them has my maker's mark in it on it, teeny tiny, and the other one will say 18 karat or 925 for silver. And these are placed, I don't have a ring here, but they're placed on the inside. If you can imagine, there's a ring. This is placed on the inside, and then it's hit with a brass hammer, actually, which is yet another hammer. Hit with a brass hammer, and that makes the maker's mark on the inside and the quality mark. These you have to have your trademark registered in order to do this, so not every goldsmith does. But when you're looking for a maker's mark, that is how it would have gotten on the inside of the ring, in case you were wondering how it got around the shank. So that's because it's bent. You can see this one is custom made, how it's like forged clearly. Because of course my maker's mark, I can't order that somewhere. It took me a long time to get that sorted. Getting a trademark is not that easy. Another thing I use a lot is different kinds of calipers. These ones were my dad's. He was an architectural engineer, so I still use his, but they're pretty much worn off and not very precise. So I have my more precise ones. Again, lots of people use them electronic. I like manual tools. And then this one would be a precision caliper for measuring stones before I make bezels, to fit the gemstone. And things like that. And speaking of bezels, this is a tool that you probably never see. Not everybody has one. I have one. This is called a bezel block. And what it is, it has different size. I have them in round and in oval. Everything else gets kind of complicated, but see, made in Italy. And it is tapered on the inside. And there's like a male-female thing going on here. This one then, so I make a bezel. And then a bezel being the kind of the jacket that holds the gem, the full all around surround. And then I put it in here, and then I shape it with the male-female situation, shape that bezel because I make it straight, and then it gets shaped this way. The tricky thing with the oval ones is each gemstone is different. They're not all the same proportions, so it doesn't always work. It only works for some gemstones. But that's a cool tool that I didn't have right away, and I'm really glad I have it. Oh, the other thing I didn't show you about the ring shanks is this is a brass block that I use. The brass is quite soft, so it wouldn't harm the gold as much as if I was trying to do it on steel or something. So this is somebody, even a fellow goldsmith, had asked me what this is when I saw it in a story, and that's what that is. It has different shapes for different kinds of shanks, so you can rest the shank in there when you hit it with the hammer to make the maker's mark. All these, like, so many specialized tools. What have I got? Oh yeah. So you've probably seen me solder and heard about solder. Solder comes in different ways, but I like these pallets. This is 18 karat solder. And you might be able to see that there's little cuts inside because, so these are called solder snips, and you never ever use them for anything other than solder, because paper, for example, would dull these, and you don't want dull solder snips. They make teeny tiny what we call pallets. I wonder if I can get one. No, I can't. It's too... I'd have to put my finger in my mouth, and that's not a proper thing to do in the studio. Well, I'll see. Teeny tiny like this. See that? So you cut these teeny tiny pieces, and that's what you put very carefully onto the piece when you have the torch going in order to, you know, solder things. Solder snips. You want to treat these well. And speaking of putting solder on, tweezers. As I was preparing for this, I was thinking about what are the things that, I use a lot and people don't even realize it. Tweezers. So much so that I have 3 of these at my solder bench, because each kind of process requires a different, requires a different kind of tweezer, and I don't know why I have so many. It's just sometimes I need bigger things. And there's actually also what's called, maybe I can find one here. Yep. These are locking tweezers, so they have a spring action, and so they hold, you can see I've heated this a bunch. They hold things securely. It's a tricky thing, you don't want to always do it, but and this is called a third arm, because sometimes you need one hand for the torch, and you might need one hand to apply the solder, and then you need sometimes what's called a third arm. This is one of these squeezy ones, to actually hold the piece of jewelry. As any goldsmith out there knows, that gets tricky because this is called a heat sink, so the heat from the flame can go into the metal in here instead of staying in the metal, and that can cause some serious grief. And after things have been soldered, they go into, see if I can make that a little bigger. There you go. They go into what's called the pickle, and the pickle is a kind of it's like a very mild acid bath. They go in here. That'll remove the oxidization. I don't think I have an oxidized piece here. That the application of heat with the torch will cause the piece to become blackened, even gold. And after it's cooled down, it will go in the pickle, where it removes that oxidization. And then in order to neutralize that acid, I have here baking soda water that neutralizes the acid. And right next to this is a sink. I will then rinse it off. And the pickle, you can only use copper tongs in that. The steel tweezers would, anyways, it's a mess. You don't want to do that. Long story. Another tool I use, a really soft toothbrush for cleaning jewelry, and you should have one too. And a certain kind of blue dish soap is really great for cleaning jewelry. It's really great for cleaning your goldsmith hands after having gotten a bunch of polishing compound on it. And glass cleaner containing silica, so Windex and its derivatives. This you need when you have a ring stuck on your finger, because it contains silica and it'll make it slide off. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is my tumbler. So a tumbler is a... I'm just realizing I have my bag of paper here to burn. I'm sorry. This is for when the winter comes back. I've saved some paper bits and cardboard for my wood stove. Sorry, you have to be exposed to that. So this is the tumbler, and it's full of stainless steel shot and water, and a bit of a burnishing compound, and it has these like ridiculously many screws on top of it. And if you follow my stories, you would have seen me sometimes at the end of the night I put the finished pieces in there. As it rolls around, it tumbles, literally tumbles the pieces together with the stainless steel shot, and that hardens the metal from its annealed state. Again, this is very technical, but into a much harder metal and polishes it a little bit. It still needs polishing afterwards, but and this just goes. You can see that when I lift it, it's quite heavy, and then it goes on here like that, and then I turn it on, and it goes around like that. And I oftentimes have this puppy go all night because it needs to be in there a long time. So those were some of the tools that you don't normally see, my unsung heroes in the studio. And if you have any questions for me, if there's something you are wondering about or you'd like to see, I know one of you has already asked me to talk about stone setting and how do I make the stone actually fit into the bezel. I have to clarify with her, does she mean fit into the bezel, or how do I make the stone and the bezel fit into the ring? But this tool comes in big on that one. So I thank you for hanging out with me today, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, a wonderful long weekend. And those in Nova Scotia, enjoy the thunderstorms, and maybe there'll be amazing skies again like we had recently. And I wish you a wonderful long weekend if you have a long weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye.